You can't vote the minutes
I saw that. And why is that?
because I was not here and there's only you and you're gonna need two.
Maybe good.
Was that a quiz?
It was a quiz. I knew the answer. The meeting's called to order. Approval of minutes for June 21st, 2022. We cannot vote on them because Mr. George was not at the meeting. And Mr. Wood is not here. So we'll move that to, when are we meeting again? 2024? That's 2020.
Sure, you want to. You're the chairman. We'll just put everything to a ground.
Public comment, is there any, this meeting's being recorded by the host. Is there any public comment in the room or on the Zoom call?
There is no one on Zoom.
So we'll move on to legislation for action. There's two orders that kind of been sitting around for a while, so they're on the agenda for the council meeting for final vote. So Shared Streets Grant, which is attached, is $200,000.
Motion to recommend.
Motion by Sean George to recommend. I will second. Any discussion?
Nope.
Nope. Sean?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. It's 2-0. Next item is Community Compact Fiber Grant. It's a 17,000.
Yep.
$17,466 for fiber optic upgrades to connect with the Bridgewater Rainham High School and the Bridgewater Police Department. Does this mean they'll be able to put cameras in be able to do elections in the high school, or is this something different?
No, this is a little confusing. It's pretty simple. It's to connect so the region now is all connected. So Bridgewater and the Rainham, all the schools are connected. So this connects the district to the town network. And through that, the district will eventually be able to connect into BSU open, whatever their internet trunk is. So it should be a substantial cost savings to the district after they get it all up and going.
And is there a motion to accept
Motion to recommend.
acceptance of the fiber grant?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by S. George. I'll second. Any discussion? Further discussion?
Nope.
To Sean?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. 2-0. Then I have two things on here for discussion. I'm glad you're here, Michael. The first one is the final FY23 state aid figures. I know that I only throw it out there for you to have an opportunity if there is a need. And Sean can chime in too, but I know the state figures, particularly the final figures that we gained about 230,000 from what I saw outside the school. And plus we are going to get prison mitigation money later on, which isn't part of the revenue that comes in later on. I just didn't know if there's anything that was presented to you during the budget process from the department heads that you said, hey, we can't do that right now. Then maybe there's something that you might want to put a supplemental budget in, even though this is short money, and rethink that. If there is anything, I'm just putting it out there, that's all.
Nope, that's a good question. And Tony and I have not really talked about it yet. Kind of waiting to see if the budget actually gets through.
Right.
But I can tell you, we didn't have any pressing items from department heads. I mean, obviously, right now, our challenge is hiring people. And we budgeted positions that we can't actually get people to fill. But my guess is we may see a need for some of that money, later in the year. So
Transfer.
yeah, so it's something that I think we want to keep sort of in our back pocket, just to see if there's a need for it you know, at least in the early part of the year. So that's kind of the way we're treating that at this point. We know we've got a huge mountain of capital needs. So if we don't use it for operational, it'll come back
It's free cash. Right.
later as free cash, and we can allocate it accordingly. So, but it's almost kind of weird. Well, it is weird that we actually get, you know, that substantially more money than was allocated, or than the governor's original.
It wasn't a lot more, but it was like general, I saw a general, the unrestricted general amount went up about 108,000. It's the state-owned land that went up 130, about 100,000 too.
That was
Increase. That was whoa.
substantial percentage increase.
It's in a row, and that does, again, that's not the prison mitigation, that comes separate and it's a one-time thing that we accept. And that's usually how much, that's like 3, 4.
A little shy of 3, I think 260, 270.
Should be a lot more.
So interestingly, the state DOC has announced they're gonna close Walpole. So you're
Wow.
That's a biggie.
concerned about, you know,
Walpole was gonna get
discrepancy.
I think you'll get like 700,000. That's a hit. When are they gonna close it?
Soon, I hope. I think.
Doesn't mean we'll get that money.
Yeah.
No, I know, but
We might get
We'll try.
we might get the prisoners if there's space over there. I don't know, but that's in Walpole.
when was that announced? I didn't see that.
it was 4 or 5 months ago.
Really?
Something like that.
What about the fire training facility? That bill passed, do you know?
For down here?
Yeah.
So there were several bills. So there was a bill passed that transferred property to fire services, or whatever they call it, at the
Right.
state level. So the objective there is for the state to have 3 training facilities, one in Stowe, one here, and then one in the western part of the state. I can't remember, by Springfield, I think. Something. So that passed 2 years, 2020, I believe. Part of that bill was quote unquote mitigation for the town, an easement along the town river on DOC property so that we could put in a trail. And so there was an issue with the bill as written back then, because it gave us a 10-foot easement within 50 feet of the river. So a lot of that is wetland, and you couldn't put a trail in. Nor did it account for any parking. So Kitty Doherty has been working with her group to try to get that amended. That amendment actually did pass the legislature. So it calls for 2 parking areas. And then I think a 50 or 100-foot easement as determined by the town and DCAM, so, and the person. So it's a lot more flexible. So that's good.
So the other item I put on here.
Well, I have one question. So at what point, or is there a point where the budget gets passed, we get an extra 230,000, where you're gonna determine, does it go operational or does it go into capital? Is there,
Well,
I mean,
these
is
are
there-
free cash.
well, no,
Let me
because,
put it in ca- Let me put it. in
Right,
cash.
then you allocate it out the way, whatever, according to the,
so it has to go into free cash.
Well,
I don't think, see, this to me is a little bit different than the prison mitigation. We know we're getting 230,000 extra. So I'm just curious, not to say, but do we have to put it into free cash?
well,
It's part of,
it's just part of the process. I mean, we may get more. It's an estimate that we voted on, and now we realize, okay, we're gonna get a little bit more, just like motor vehicle excise. You know, we hope we get more than we budgeted,
right, but
but we can't really start spending.
motor vehicles collections, you don't know until it comes in. We're gonna get 230,000 extra in state aid. I mean, I think you look at it from 2 perspectives. One, can it go into operational for this year, or does it go into reserves?
Well, I agree with what Michael's plan is. I think that if he doesn't have anything that was severely not funded in the budget presentations to him, but he says, other than he's having, a hard time filling positions, which means salaries will be saved. I mean, there'll be money in the salary line item, which will roll into free cash as well,
Right.
if we don't fill them. So,
which I understand. Here's my question. So no one said they had just out of curiosity, when did you get your final asks by your department heads? Or what month, like October,
It's March.
March?
You know,
Okay,
Sort of middle March, because
Right.
the
So-
budget is due April 1st. So we make sure that we are communicating right through, really right before April 1st.
so kind of my question is, all right, so from March to, we'll say today, if something has changed, do you go to the department heads first and say, okay, we've got not to, to Dennis's point, it's not a ton of money, but we do have a little bit more coming in for this year operationally. Is there something that we need to allocate now versus having it go straight into free cash and then have to do allocations? It's just a question. I'm not saying you should do that, but do you do it or do you just earmark it automatically?
No, we track, so what we try to do, just as a matter of routine, once the budget's passed, presumably the departments, we've we've gone back and forth with the departments about what their needs are. The departments, I can tell you, are absolutely, committed to their departments, but they don't, they're not outrageous asks. They
Right.
know the constraints, they all know, they've been around. So when we pass the budget, that's the budget that they live with. Monthly, we make sure that we're tracking the spending so that when we have conversations each month with the department heads, they can tell us, geez, overtime, like police spent a lot in overtime in 2022. And we knew that, and we knew why. Fire department, same thing, they've got a few vacancies, we spent a lot in overtime over there. So we knew, and did we budget all that we needed for overtime? No, but we were able to transfer within the departments and then with the year-end transfers to cover that. So it was all covered. So the challenge and what Dennis is talking about, were there any crying needs that we had to cut through the budget process? And we really didn't. I mean, nobody had a crying
Right.
need that they were like devastated that they couldn't get the money for. So when we have and I'll call it a windfall because it's a nice addition to where we thought we would be. We can do a supplemental appropriation later, anytime during the fiscal year, based on that budget, which presumably will get signed.
and we take it from stabilization and that type of.
So in the past, we've taken, very rarely have we taken things from stabilization, but during COVID, when we had the first COVID year, we knew we were projecting our revenues to plummet. And we transferred $1.6 million, I think it was, from stabilization to cover just our regular operating budget. Fortunately, the next year, we were able to put that $1.6 million right back into stabilization so that we didn't skip a beat. My point, though, is that every month we keep tabs on what's going on in each of the departments. So if there is some weird thing, if the police department has, all of a sudden has 3 other officers out and we've got to cover with more overtime, then that's a nice cushion to have. So, or the fire department, same reason. So,
Which I understand, and I'm just saying, it was just a question in regards to, do we need to add the extra step, which is fine. Okay, you had.
And I wanted to keep this at this level and not at the council level. There's no need to.
No, that's
but
fine.
the only other thing I would add to that is we're also very conscious of the fact that, we might very well be moving into a recession and we'll see local receipts drop, motor
They
vehicle.
could come back and say, wait a minute, we can't give you that amount.
Or that's the worst case.
The 9C cuts,
Yeah.
it's only happened once since I've been around, but it was devastating. Romney did that.
Yeah.
We got a pretty good rainy day fund, so.
They do, hopefully I'll see some of that.
But
In my mailbox, I mean.
Not mine.
In my mailbox.
we'll always, but we're always very sensitive about, especially if it comes to adding more people. Because we are committed to carrying those people through
Right.
an economic downturn. So if, it's easy to say, oh, let's, hire, 3 new employees for whatever. But then if we see that downturn next year and can't carry them, then we're stuck, so.
But the longer you're not able to fill those funded positions, because we're a month into the fiscal year, it's excess money in this year's budget.
Right.
Unless you have to,
Well, but it's also getting eaten up, it's also getting eaten up by overtime.
you all done with that?
Yes, sir.
The opioid settlement funds, I've been reading a lot about different towns, and I know we'll get some. I don't know exactly how the formula works, but some towns are getting a good chunk of money, mostly the cities. I didn't know, what your thoughts are, and if you've been looking at this, I couldn't figure out on this, there are spreadsheets out there. And what your plan would be with that money, some program, the police department.
So so right now, we're not getting a huge amount of money. But right now, the police department has a program that they get grant funded that has a social worker go to a lot of the, the overdose calls or the, what they think are drug related or domestic abuse calls. So we are going to see a revenue stream, again, not a huge amount, but we will see a revenue stream from this. The issue with the opioid settlement is that we can't spend that money as if it were general fund revenue.
Right, it would be earmarked for probably police related or substance abuse related stuff.
Right.
And that, but when it comes in, the towns would have to accept that or would it just come in? How would,
That is a good question.
because it would be nice if, when it came in, that we could say we got it and say, this is how we're gonna help, some people in
Yes.
our community that are, have issues. And it'll be handled under the police department or whatever. I know a lot of towns have already started putting together policies as to how to handle that. And this I think is isn't it like round one? Isn't it like a lot of this coming?
Yeah, it's a long-term commitment
It's a lot of money.
over a
It's a
number
huge,
of years.
and there's others, I just think
Yeah.
it'd be a good, PR thing to
Yeah.
let the residents know we're getting this money and we're gonna use this to help, residents in the town that are having,
I'd
issues.
almost like to see it split between education and treatment.
So education is one of the Attorney General's office listed,
Right.
very
Yeah.
specific
Yeah.
items that you could use the money for, and that was one of them.
Mhm.
Educational, you can do it through the schools. You can do it through, over here BSU, or you can just do it as an educational program.
Yeah.
Townwide.
Which is, I'm just saying, for simplicity, half and half. Half a treatment, we need to ramp up with, Narcan and all of that, but also the other half should be educational.
I mean, is it something, maybe that if somebody needs treatment and they can't afford it, could they ask for some help with this fund? I don't know.
I
But that's,
think so.
I think there's a state aid for that too,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
But it was a good settlement,
Yeah.
and, I think each town will get a piece of it to help out the citizens in their communities that need help.
I was on a conference call with the AG's office just to talk about, what you can do with it. And this was probably 3 weeks ago. They really had no idea how DOR was going to treat this, whether, it comes directly in as a legal settlement directly into the town. But regardless, I think that's a good idea. It's just, let's bring it to the council level. Let's talk about, how we're going to
help people, yeah.
help people and talk about the money that's coming in and the availability of support, whether it's treatment or education. I agree. We'll do that anyway. I mean, we may not be required to do that, but I think we'll do that anyway.
So I just want to keep that at our level, not have a 3-hour discussion. So that's all that's on the agenda, Sean. Now, tonight's council meeting, I believe, is only one thing,
Right,
a capital leasing obligation that'll come back to us, right? Any issues with the district agreement that Sean's bringing up, that would be a financial
no,
thing. come to us. So we have
No.
one thing that's coming to us.
No, I mean, I'm interested in the conversation. I don't even, I would think that we would just maybe, like we did with the regional agreement, it's just to assign someone to work with the district on just cleaning it up, because we're not changing any terms. We just
I know,
got,
but I
It's
want to
gotta
get back
be
to
cleaned
that.
but anyway,
We, at the moment, we don't have another council meeting until September 13th.
Yeah.
Do you want to wait till that night to meet, or do you?
I think so.
Do you want to have a meeting like next week?
No, no, I mean,
I'm just saying it's unless there's a special meeting called, but even if there's a special meeting called, we'll have our next meeting September
yeah,
13th.
I don't think.
Is that okay for that, Lisa? You don't, does that need?
That's fine. Honestly, there's no, I don't,
I don't know.
if you look at the current lease, I think the only thing I identified was just, adding the school buildings. I mean-
Oh, no, I'm
No,
talking
no,
about the transfer order for capital.
Oh,
leasing
I'm sorry.
operations.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. I'm sorry.
The other one isn't gonna come to us. This is
Yeah.
gonna come to the budget and finance, right?
Oh, right.
It's the capital
Yeah.
leasing obligations, the transfer, I don't know what the amount is, but is that something you
500
need
and
done,
something.
you want before September 13th?
Nope, that's fine.
Because I don't know when the finance committee will meet on that one. So we'll meet.
Six o'clock?
September 13th, one item.
Okay.
6 o'clock is fine.
Yep.
And if there's a need for a special meeting of the council before then, we still won't meet. We'll wait till September 13th.
That's fine. That's fine.
Fine by me. Motion to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Sean, yes. Dennis, yes. We are adjourned at 6:22. We're done.